Today, we're diving into the story that kicked everything off, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's A Study in Scarlet, the very first appearance of the one and only Sherlock Holmes. You'd think the world's most famous detective would get a huge, splashy debut, right? Well, nope. His very first case was published right here, kind of tucked away inside the 1887 edition of Beaton's Christmas Annual. A global icon born in a humble holiday magazine. Just incredible.
And to give you a sense of just how far it's come since then, in 2007, a single copy of that magazine, which originally sold for about $1, went for over $150,000 at auction. Talk about a glow-up.
But the book's real value, of course, isn't just about the money. It was the book that introduced us to two of the most iconic characters in all of literature, and their first meeting would literally change the mystery genre forever. So let's start there, with that legendary first meeting. This is all about how Dr. Watson first got to know the strange, brilliant man who was about to become his flatmate.
So first up, let's meet Dr. John Watson. He's an army surgeon just back from the Second Anglo-Afghan War where he was wounded. He's been through it, even caught typhoid fever. Now he's back in London trying to find a quiet place to live and, more importantly, a cheap place to live.
So a friend hooks him up with a potential roommate, this kind of peculiar guy working in a chemical lab. And these are the very first words Sherlock Holmes ever says to him. Just by looking at him, Holmes figures out he's a military man, where he served, and that he's been injured. Watson's mind is just completely blown.
Now, this is where it gets really fun. Watson is so fascinated and, let's be honest, confused by Holmes that he makes this list trying to figure him out. And it is just bizarre. The guy knows absolutely nothing about literature. He doesn't know anything about astronomy. He didn't even know the Earth went around the sun. But his knowledge of chemistry, profound. And he seems to know every gory detail of every crime from the past century. You're looking at a mind that's been aggressively fine-tuned for one single purpose, solving crimes.
And, well, it doesn't take long for Watson to get pulled right into that world. A truly baffling murder case brings Scotland Yard knocking on their new door at 221B Baker Street. The scene is pretty grim. A man named Enoch Drebber, all dressed up, is found dead in an abandoned house. There are no wounds, nothing's been stolen, but the look on his face is pure horror. And this is the central clue. Scrawled on the wall, in blood, is the word Rach. Now the police, Inspectors Gregson and Lestrade, they jump on this. They figure the killer was trying to write the name Rachel and got interrupted. But Holmes, he takes one look and practically laughs. He points out that Rach is the German word for revenge.
So while the police are off chasing this Rachel idea, Holmes is already building a crazy detailed profile of the killer. He's looking at footprints, cigar ash, the scene itself, and he just lays out these facts with total confidence. The killer is tall, wears specific boots, smokes a rare type of cigar, and used poison. This is his science of deduction in action, and it just leaves the official detectives completely in the dust.
So you see this huge split, right? The police go for the simple answer. They arrest a guy with a pretty obvious motive. But Holmes? He sees something way bigger, way more complex. A story of revenge that's crossed continents and decades, all carried out by a London cab driver.
And to actually understand Holmes's theory, the novel does something totally unexpected. To solve these murders in foggy London, we have to go back in time, all the way to the sun-baked plains of the American West.
Yeah, this is what makes A Study in Scarlet so unique, and honestly, a little weird. The entire second half of the book is a massive flashback. It's a whole other story that explains the deep, dark motive behind the killings. It's not just about how it was done, it's all about the why.
So in this flashback, we meet John Ferrier and a little girl, Lucy. They're the only survivors of a lost wagon train about to die in the desert when they're rescued by a group of Mormons. They build a new life, but years later, Lucy falls in love with an outsider named Jefferson Hope. The community elders won't have it. They forced her to marry one of their own. Yep, the very same Enoch Drebber from the murder scene. The whole ordeal literally kills her, and her father is murdered by Drebber's buddy, Joseph Stangerson.
And this wasn't just a few powerful guys making a decision. Their will was enforced by this secret shadowy group called the Avenging Angels. They were the ones who hunted down Lucy's father and made sure she was trapped in that tragic marriage. This was an entire system of control. And that brings us right back to Jefferson Hope. After he finds Lucy dead and her father murdered, he makes a vow. He spends the next 20 years of his life hunting Drebber and Stangerson across America and Europe, driven by this one single thing: revenge.
Okay, so let's jump back to London, where this decades-long hunt is finally about to end, and where the legend of Sherlock Holmes is really and truly born.
Holmes, who's now figured out the backstory from a telegram he sent to the U.S., sets the perfect trap. He uses his network of street kids, the Baker Street Irregulars, to track down every single cab driver in London. Eventually, they find Jefferson Hope. Holmes calls him up to 221B, pretending he needs help with his luggage, and then, bam, slaps the handcuffs on him. So how do you pull it all together? It was this amazing mix of things: meticulous observation, like the cab tracks, getting outside information, like that telegram about Hope's past, using street-level intel from his irregulars, and even a little bit of clever trickery, like placing a fake ad for a lost ring. It was just a masterclass in his method.
But the story has one final twist. Jefferson Hope never even makes it to trial. He dies peacefully in his cell that night from a heart condition he'd had for years. His decades-long quest for vengeance was finally over. In his mind, justice had been done. As you can imagine, the newspapers give all the credit for the capture to Inspectors Gregson and Lestrade. Watson is furious that Holmes's genius is being ignored, and right then and there, he decides he has to become his friend's biographer. He's going to publish the real story so the world can know the truth. And with that, their legendary partnership is officially born.
It's just amazing to think about, isn't it? This one story in a cheap little Christmas magazine created a character who's fascinated people for more than a century. It really makes you wonder, what other legends are out there, hiding in plain sight, just waiting for us to find them?